Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast. Hello, Kate.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Okay, guys, today we're going to do things just a little bit differently, a little bit, I was going to say more fun, but geez, I hope you
think so.
guys are
Yeah, I was
having
gonna say
fun on the other episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little different, but I hope the other ones are still fun. Anyway, this whole episode, we are going to talk about books, but also
Take a look. It's in
a book. Reading rainbow, butterfly in the sky. Okay, sorry. I would do the whole thing.
I feel like there's probably licensing issues on that.
Yeah,
but we might have to cut that.
Yeah, right. If it makes it through the edit, please don't tell. Please do not alert LeVar Burton. Yeah. Please do not alert PBS. Please do not. They have bigger fish to fry.
Mm-hmm. We can't afford that.
Maybe they need it. Yeah, like, oh dear. Anyway, we are, as they would say in Reading Rainbow, don't just take my word for it. We are going to make some book recommendations, but not just us. So Kate and I have some books to share with you. And then we have put out the call to a couple of our team members on the Filthy Rich Writer team, and then to the Comprehensive Copywriting Academy community. So without further ado, let's get our recommendations out there so we can get the recommendations from everyone else as well. Kate, do you want to start?
Sure. I have a couple. I'm going to start with I was going to say they're all fun, but the nonfiction versus fiction. I do have a fiction recommendation because it's summer. We all need a little bit of light-hearted literature in our world. But the first book is 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. And I know you've read this too, Nikki. I always like to say, and I think there might be some version of this on my LinkedIn still. I need to update that. But at the end of my time, when I'm 80, hopefully I make it to 80, I always picture myself, I'm like, I'm going to be on a front porch. I'm going to be in a rocking chair. I'm going to have a mint julep. And what am I going to be thinking about? I'm not necessarily going to be thinking about clients that I worked with and projects that I worked on. Hopefully, yes, I'm very proud of what I've accomplished at that age. But I'm going to be thinking about relationships I've had and friendships and family. And that book just reminded me of the importance of staying in the present and staying grounded in what truly matters and letting go of some of the less important things in life. And so if anyone's read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, I feel like this is the more down to earth practical version of that book was my kind of summed up takeaway. And just listen to these are the type of books I feel like I would come back to this book again. I listened to it on audio actually versus reading. So when I walk the dog.
He's got a great voice.
Yes. And it's definitely one where I'm like, I'm going to save this bookmarked because you just need to hear some of these things again and again when you kind of go off the path and you're like so concentrated on what's next and is it going to work on and come back to that place of everything here and now is okay. What do I need to do? What's important?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the anti-productivity. Instead of okay, how can I cram more things into my day? It's, do you really want to be doing that? And maybe you're just setting yourself up for unnecessary pain. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that one too.
What's one of yours?
Ooh, okay, one of mine.
Yeah. Sure.
This is, I'll start with super tactical.
Ooh.
This one, and if you're watching, I'm surprised that I think I have tinier. There are highlights and Post-its, highlights, it's called Online Influence, and it's by Bass Wooters. What a name, Bass Wooters. I say that with full respect. That's a great name. I love it. And it is all about the tests and the kind of tweaks that you make on websites and the way that you present information. And if any of you have read Influence by Robert Cialdini, he kind of goes into the behavioral economics and how we don't necessarily act rationally. Here's a prime example, right? The paradox of choice. We think as people the more choices I have, the happier I'll be. But a really classic example is they did a test in a grocery store and they put out a whole 20 different types of jams or jellies or one of the two. I think anyway, it doesn't matter which one it is. Focus, Nick, focus. They put out 20 different
curds
jams.
Maybe as well.
Jams,
jellies, curds.
Jams, jellies, curds, whey. Preserves. And what they were measuring to see how many people purchased, like people sampled, and then they wanted to see how many people purchased. When they put out 20, okay, they measured that. Then they put out, instead of putting out 20, they chose 3. And people were much more likely to purchase when they were choosing from among 3 than choosing among 20. And it's just a prime example of how we think we know what we want and we actually don't. So I guess kind of a little bonus one, the Robert Cialdini influence, it's kind of a basic one, but this weighty tome goes into a whole bunch of different experiments and things that you can do on websites and things that you can do in emails and things that it's just so interesting. I read it through and made notes, and now I have to like go through and schedule out experiments for the team. It's so useful for you as pitching copywriter, pitching clients, so useful for you. And then it's also things that you can propose to your clients. I like is what you're saying, pitching to clients. It's just super duper duper interesting. So this might for tactical.
Love it. I have one more tactical one before I get to the lighthearted fun one. And we've probably referenced this before, if not on the podcast, certainly within the CCA itself. And that is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And that is another one to come back to again and again and again and just refresh. Basically, if you have not taken a look at your finances, thought about investing, started investing, thinking about your retirement, thinking about how you spend and save money, because I think that's one of the best things about his philosophy really is that we aren't making money to just hoard it and not ever spend. Certainly we want to get out of debt, and there's tips for that, but we also want to live our lives, and you can simultaneously be carrying debt, certainly, but not, it doesn't mean you can't go get your avocado toast and your latte if you want that. Like those aren't the big purchases that are going to make or break your finances. And so it's just, if you I know it's summer, but like maybe you have more time in your schedule. There's no better time than now, besides yesterday, as the saying goes, to start looking at all of that and just one step at a time. He breaks it down in that book week by week of like, here's what to do this week. And if you need to break it down further, frankly, do that. If you want to turn every chapter into a month and, the 3 tasks he has in the back, do 1 every week. Do what you got to do to simplify. And if you need to break those tasks into tinier tasks, do that. But every step that you take is going to set yourself up toward where you want to get.
Well, and he uses rich in the same way that we use rich, because I think sometimes I will teach you to be rich. Is it like, oh, you're going to be a multimillionaire? I mean, maybe eventually, but in that same way that we use as Filthy Rich Writer, that we use in that like rich is feeling so good about your life. And it's not just feeling abundant in money. It certainly can be that, but feeling abundant in time and feeling abundant in relationships and just building the best possible life that you can, having a rich life. Yeah. I guess this isn't really tactical, kind of more philosophical, and
we like that.
Yes. CCA students, you might have heard me mention this one. I feel like every once in a while. It's a book called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, and it digs into the kind of the philosophy of the Stoics, and I think sometimes we think about Stoicism as just being, stiff upper lip and just powering through. And that's really not what it comes down to. It's about when you're encountering challenging things in your life, how to lean into it and how to go with it, how to even sometimes embrace it. But I find it really helpful to go back to again and again whenever I'm facing a new challenge or out of my element, or which, let's face it, business owners, happens all the time, right? And I mean, you too, CCA students, you are building your own businesses. It really kind of grounds me. It's something I like to read like first thing in the morning to get myself set up for the day. And I cannot recommend it enough, just in general, but also if you're finding yourself just feeling a little extra challenged, it's such a good go-to.
Now that you mentioned that, I have to, because I'm looking at it right to my left, by Ryan Holiday, The Daily Stoic. So I know that's their Instagram account, but they have a book of, and so it's, day by day. So May 8th, January 20th, September 15th, every day of the, I don't know why. We should record an episode that's just me saying the day of the week. January 1st.
So happy. Just in case you're unclear as to what every day of the year is, let me list out some of them for you. Oh, that's staying in. You know that's staying in. Thanks, Kate. That was helpful.
Oh, man. I don't know where it's end of the day, folks. Every day
I
of the
really
year.
loved that. I loved that.
There are entries not just for May 8th, January 20th, and September, whatever. Every day of the year, there's an entry. So when you said starting the day with it, for a while I got off the train, but starting the day with reading the entry from that book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Love it. October 23rd, too?
Do you want me to read you October 23rd?
I don't know if you can. I don't know if the copyright law will allow us
we won't.
to.
We won't do that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I'm crying. Let's get to fun things.
Okay, fun ones.
We need fun ones. Do you want to go first?
Sure, I will. Okay, I was actually just saying to Kate before we got on this, because I don't know why I didn't think to recommend this to her sooner, because I finished it on, doesn't matter where I finished it, but I finished it on a plane, and I was like, I want people to know about this. It's called The Ministry of Time, and the author is Kellyanne Bradley. And it actually, as I describe it, it's not things that I would usually go for. It's a little bit sci-fi. It involves some time travel element. There's even a little bit of romance, but I don't think anybody who's like romance is going to be turned off by it because it's done well. It also has kind of the feeling of and some parts of it had feeling of like an action film, but at the same time, all of that put together in just a well written, well crafted. The prose itself is well crafted, and the story itself. I finished it and I was like, that was so much fun. And I feel like there's so many books that we don't get that opportunity to go, ooh, that was fun. So this is The Ministry of Time. As I recall, it's not necessarily a short one, but it goes so quickly. Mm-hmm. Definitely a fun go-to read. Yes.
In a similar vein of, it looks long, and I think, page-wise it might be, The God of the Woods is my fun one by Liz Moore. So and Nikki fun. Has also, I know, read this. Yes, so fun. And I think, I forget if it was pitched to me as a mystery, but I feel like I don't typically like mysteries. Yeah. And so this had, certainly there's a mystery element to it, but there's good character development. I guess there's a whodunit angle, but there's so much more to it. It takes place at a camp somewhere in upstate New York, I believe, and back in the 70s, something like that. I think
there were two timelines, as I recall. Yeah.
Either way, it's a good one. I feel like it's one of those books that it started to pick up toward the end, in the sense of, I'm like, this is going too fast. I'm like, no, it's just because I want to know what happens, and I'm excited to read what's next. And it's one of those where you might be in bed and your partner looks over and is like, are you still up? It's 2 a.m. And you're like, I can't stop it. It's like when Harry Potter books came out and you were like, I gotta know what happens. It's that type of read, which is super fun.
Yes. Yeah, that was one. I think it's a long one, but I think I finished it in a weekend.
I finished it very quickly compared to
I started and I was
shorter.
Like, I'm going to set aside all the other things that I was going to do this weekend. I'd rather finish this. Yeah.
Super, super fun.
Okay, so those are our recommendations. And now we have some recommendations coming from the rest of the community. So enjoy.
Hi, everybody. Andy here, and I'm bringing you guys a book, The Tapestries by Kim Nugent. This is a book written by a Vietnamese author. Since I'm in Vietnam right now, I'm trying to read a lot of their literature. And this is a book that takes place in early 1920s Vietnam. So they still have their Vietnamese king, but the French have their influence in Vietnam at the time. And so this is a drama that takes place over generations of a family and features all of the intensity of wealth and power and status intermixed with conflict surrounding all of these things clashing together. And it's just a fabulous book. Once you start it, you won't be able to put it down because it's just got a lot of compelling characters and you want to know what's going to happen to them by the end. So this is my recommendation. I hope you enjoy. I hope you check it out and talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Hey, CCA, my name is Leanne. I recommend Stories Sell by Matthew Dix. originally clicked on it thinking that it was a marketing book about how to write better stories for marketing. And it really is, but it's much more than that. It's really about using stories for life and to connect to people, which, that's what we're trying to do. So I recommend it on all levels for marketing, for copywriting, and for just being a more interesting human. Yeah, thanks.
Hey there, it's Nikki. I wanted to take a very quick minute to make sure that you knew about our free on-demand copywriting training. Now, whether you are brand new to copywriting or you've been doing it for a while, but you just can't seem to hit those income goals, this training is for you. You are going to learn the 3 secrets to landing freelance copywriting work without relying on frustrating job bidding sites like Upwork or Fiverr, or without cold calling strangers. And if you've watched any of the student success stories on this channel, and if you haven't yet, check them out. This is the exact same training that they all started with. And I mean students like Kate K, who is making 6 figures working part-time and retired her husband to help her build her business. Students like Stuart, who replaced his full-time salary, which was a good one, with his freelance income and then some. Stacy, who hit 6 figures in her first 6 months as a freelance copywriter, and Ashley, who landed the in-house copywriting job of her dreams. They all started with this free training, and you can start with this free training too. So sign up right now at freecopywritingtraining.com.
If I could speak now to my teenage self, I might tell her to be more forgiving of her parents. Maybe they were doing the best they could. It's possible. If adulthood has taught me anything, it's that even grown-ups are fallible. We're not a whole lot smarter than we were when we were teenagers. We still feel the same stir of emotions, the same awkward human needs and doubts we felt then. Only the shell grows thicker. The inside, the more tender parts remain surprisingly unchanged. Often, and this is a secret that not many parents will tell their children, often we don't know what the hell we're doing. And so we yell and we shout. We will make mistakes all the time. This book, Letter to My Daughter, written by George Bishop, was a very heart-touching story. It's told through a letter from a mother to her daughter who has run away from home after they've had a fight. The mother has opened up herself vulnerably by writing a letter to tell her 15-year-old daughter her life as a 15-year-old. And within the book, it shows vulnerability, pain, and quiet love. It's about growing up, making mistakes, and seeing your child's struggles as echoes of your own. And what made it especially personal for me was that the setting was in Louisiana. So the author talks about Baton Rouge and Zachary and Lafayette, LSU. So it made it more personal for me. It felt like home because I grew up around all of these areas. I still live in Louisiana. And so these places allowed me to connect with the story even more. This book reminded me, inside every mother is still a 15-year-old girl. It's a very good read. It's a quick read. I suggest that you read it. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Caitlin Spinney. I'm the operations manager for Filthy Rich Writer, and I'm super excited to share one of my favorite books with you. I read this about a year and a half ago after a recommendation from my sister-in-law. It's called The Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. And what I love about this book is that it doesn't just focus on personality style or traits. It's really about your motivational style. And I feel like it helps you understand why you do or don't do the things based on how you respond to expectation. I feel like the author really breaks down the 4 types, which are upholders, questioners, obligers, and rebels. And she does a great job of explaining the different tendencies of each of those styles, but then also like what you can do about it. So instead of just hearing about what your personality style is, this is very focused on understanding what motivates you and then some tips, tricks, and hacks to get yourself motivated when maybe that's difficult. I'll give you a quick little example. So one of the ones that she gives is for people who need a buddy. And you'll understand when you read the book which style means buddy. I don't want to ruin it. No spoilers. She gives an example of these 2 friends that go together to the gym every morning and they swap shoes at the end of their workout. So they each have one of their shoes and one of their buddy's shoes, which means they'd have to show up the next morning to work out, or the other one is missing a shoe. And I just think that's a really fun example. There's plenty that are super easy to use, easy to implement. And I think you see this both at home, at work. So it's not just a nonfiction book that you'll use in your work. So incredibly useful. And whether you're looking to build better habits or work more effectively independently or with a team, I feel like this just really helps to explain how people thrive and how you individually thrive. So if you're curious about what really drives behavior, I would highly recommend the Four Tendencies. I found it to be super fun, super eye-opening. I finished the book and immediately ran to Kate and Nikki and was like, we all have to read this. And it's become a teen favorite for sure. I wanted to share a book that has really changed my thinking around time. It's called 4,000 Weeks, and it's by Oliver Burkeman. I'll be honest, I don't normally go for books like this. It leans a bit more philosophical than what I typically pick up. However, Berkman's approach to time, and especially the way we've turned productivity into an almost dirty word, kind of grabbed me. So hearing this from someone who, the author, has literally built a career as a productivity expert, and that's just kind of made it even better. So one of the biggest ideas that stuck with me is that time isn't a resource like money. And we do tend to treat it that way, right? Like we try to spend it wisely, save it up. The truth is we can't accumulate more of it. And we just have the time we have in the moment that we have it. And so I think the more we chase efficiency, the more we become, as he puts it, a limitless reservoir for other people's expectations. I really like that one. One thing I've actually started implementing was his idea of cultivating instantaneous generosity. And so when I feel an impulse to give a compliment, send a kind message, or make a small donation, I just do it instead of putting it off for later. I don't know about you, but I could really get in my own head about saying the right thing at the right time in the right way. Or I think about making that donation and I will get to it. And instead, I'm just doing it in the moment as it is popping into my head. And I probably could, refine my words better or find a better time. But if I wait, I may not do it at all. So it's just such a simple shift, but it's made me a little bit more present and intentional in my relationships. Burkeman also talks about the importance of doing nothing, like literally practicing doing nothing. And I love that a productivity expert is the one to tell us to do this. I think that's kind of fun. We're just so conditioned to believe that more is always better. And sometimes the best thing we can do is stop, sit with being uncomfortable, or sit in the discomfort and just be. So if you ever feel like you're running out of time or like your to-do list will never end, and spoiler, it won't. Or if you like me and you need to rethink how you spend your energy, I would highly recommend 4,000 Weeks. It's not about getting more done. It's about making peace with the fact that you won't. And that's actually pretty free.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ariel, and I'm going to be recommending one of my favorite books, The Perfect Horse by Elizabeth Letts. You may be thinking, what is this cheese, The Perfect Horse? But let me tell you, the title is deeper than what you think. This book is a historical nonfiction, and the author tracked down historical documents and did years of research before writing this book. There are parts where you can tell it's a nonfiction, such as the character introductions, characters being real people. And there are definitely parts, way more parts, where it's action-packed and it feels like it's written like a fiction. This book is actually a World War II book. The Nazis were working on creating perfect breeds of horses and dogs, and as they gained power, they began to seize the herds of the high-quality horses. Like some of you may be familiar with the Lipizzaner stallions, and those were seized during World War II, but there were also Polish Arabians who were seized. Anyways, this book is about those horses and the people who risked and sometimes lost their lives trying to protect them and keep them safe. It's written with such depth, it's like you were there. So as a lifelong horse girl and animal lover, I'm not going to lie, I cried more than once reading this book, but the reward for the hard parts was the constant reminder that people can be so selfless and loving and good. I think a lot of us could use that reminder right now. So that's why I would recommend this book. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
I'm Jay. I I've been on the Build Your Copywriting Business podcast before, so I was stoked when Nikki and Kate asked me to hop on and give a couple of book recs. I know there's a lot of ground covered with the other recommendations, so I wanted to kind of give like a breadth of things that I've read, sort of both for myself in my career advancement, but also just what I read for fun. I'm a copywriter. So the first book I want to talk about was one that I read a number of years ago. It's called Mindset, The Psychology of Success. This is by Carol S. Dweck. People have talked a lot about growth mindset over the years, especially recently. And this concept of growth mindset wasn't exactly started by this book, but this was sort of my first introduction to it. And I think it's a really good sort of exploration of this conceit. And the idea is that so much of our growth and so much of our direction in our careers and in our personal lives comes from sort of having a growth attitude toward your life. So the author gives a ton of examples about like how this kind of comes to life in raising children, how this comes to life in relationships, how this comes to life in just sort of day-to-day things like chores. But the sort of crux of the things that I took away were really this idea that if you have the opposite of a growth mindset, a fixed mindset, that means there really isn't a lot of potential for change. So what this can mean is you can know something and be smart and sort of know the answer to a question. And that's great if you have a fixed mindset, if you know the answer to something. But if somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer to it, right? And you have this sort of fixed mindset and you're frustrated with yourself that you don't know the answer, then you can start assigning negative words to yourself like, oh, I'm stupid, or, oh, how could I not have researched this before? But if you have a growth mindset, you can sort of take this idea and sort of consider it like, oh, this is a knowledge gap. So now that I've identified this thing that I don't know, then I can go learn it. And then now I'm a little bit better than I was yesterday. And so that's like sort of an oversimplification. It's something that I really, really sort of taken into my career, as copywriters. I think we all face tons of feedback and tons of sort of opinions from people. And if you don't have a growth mindset, it's really easy to take that personally and really easy to sort of be stubborn. And nobody really wants to work with a stubborn copywriter. They want to work with a copywriter that's willing to work within a team and grow and evolve their approach to writing in the same way. I kind of wanted to flip to something a little bit more tactical on the business side. Lately in my career, I've sort of moved more into the sort of in-house tech copywriting space, more specifically working with brands and websites and sort of tech companies to craft their message. And a lot of times this is more often referred to as UX writing or content design or UX content or sort of often sits in like a design organization within the business, but more specifically a product design. And the book that I want to recommend is called Jobs to Be Done: Theory to Practice. So this is a book by a guy named Anthony W. Ulwick. And actually, if you are in the tech space or in the product space, you've heard this phrase, jobs to be done. And frankly, I've heard it in a lot of recent roles, kind of misused. It's used to talk about any job somebody would want to do on a website or in an app. And it got me thinking, like, what is this consideration? Because if you're in the UX space, if you're a copywriter for a website and you're dealing with more UX writing, more guiding language, somebody signing up for a service or somebody downloading an app and getting to know the app or these kinds of things, you're often walking a user through a lot of experiences with your words. Those users are coming to the app for a reason. And that reason is often, in one framework of thinking, it's often called a job to be done. What job is that user trying to accomplish? And this book is really helpful in sort of adding form for me in adding form to something that is often quite nebulous. Well, let me use a real life example of a job to be done. So if you are doing your chores, one of the jobs you're trying to complete is to wash the dishes. Let's say that's a chore I think everybody understands how to do. There are lots of things that you're literally doing when you're washing the dishes. You're choosing the soap. You're thinking about whether you should soak a dish. You are adding soap to a sponge. You're wiping it off. You're rinsing it off. You're drying, or you're putting a dish in the dishwasher. You're choosing the dishwasher cycle. All of these are little sub jobs, and there are lots of complicated things that people go through. But keeping in mind and keeping focused on what that core job is for someone can really help to anchor an experience and anchor the writing within an experience so that people never lose sight of what they're actually trying to do, right? So the way this comes to life in like an app or something, if somebody is getting, downloading your app and they want to sign up and create an account, there's a reason, there's a benefit they want to create an account, right? So if it's a exercise app, right? So they're probably looking to track their steps or track their exercise or whatever. And their sort of core job is to build this into their lifestyle and be healthier, right? So all of the things that you're getting them to do when they're signing up for that app or whatever should be anchored to what these sort of core moments are for them. They don't just want to connect the app to their sort of like Apple Health app. They don't just want to know how to start a workout. They don't just want to know how to track the data on the back end. What they want to know is how this app can help them achieve that thing that they're trying to achieve. So again, like this is pretty basic, simple stuff, but this book is really helpful in giving examples for how you can kind of break down larger, headier things into sub-steps and how you can use that as a framework for like information architecture. So really tactical and nerdy about this stuff, but I found it really helpful. It was a short read. It only took me, like a couple afternoons. And then the last book I wanted to recommend was actually this is actually fiction. I think a lot of reading we can do when we're trying to further our career is really hyper-focused on business books. And those are great, but I think as writers, you need to sort of like scratch that creative itch a little bit in a way that's kind of lower stakes. And I think reading novels is a great way to do that. So one book that I read recently that really that was really entertaining it's called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. It's a horror novel. That's sort of like one of the genres I really turn to, whether it's in movie or in books. It's got a lot of sort of supernatural elements. It won a few awards, but it's sort of a New York Times bestseller. Definitely one of those breakout novels. And it was great. It's really entertaining, really sort of gripping, and intense. And I want that sort of distilled intensity. So if you're into horror, give it a shot. It's called The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. So thanks, and I don't know, enjoy the books.
Hello, I'm Deborah Chalk, and the book I'm going to recommend is called Mass Persuasion Method by Bushra Azhar. And it says the tagline underneath it is activate the 8 psychological switches that make people open their hearts, minds, and wallets for you without knowing why they are doing it. Now, it's quite a sensational title, but it's actually, if you see past that, it's actually a very useful book. What I found exceptionally helpful about it is with the persuasion switches, you can use them when you're copywriting. And I used to really enjoy using them if I was writing an email sequence. So you're trying to think of different angles for the different emails in the sequence. You could actually think, okay, I'm going to take each of the persuasion switches and use one of them for each of the emails. And I just found that doing that, it gave me a bit of structure where there's no structure. And it actually meant that I had confidence that what I was writing was going to be effective. That's my recommendation. Thanks for watching.
Okay, and there you have it. Those are at least a few of the recommendations from a few of the members of the CCA community. Obviously, we have way too many that we could include in one podcast, but thank you to all of you who sent in your submissions. This was a lot of fun. I think this may be something that we will have to do again. So if you enjoyed it, first of all, please let us know. If you have not yet followed the podcast or rated us, please do that. That very much helps us to bring you this podcast. But also, let us know, comment and let us know which of these books you are adding to your list, or if there is a book that you absolutely love and you have to share with the rest of the CCA community,
please do.
Put it in the comments, let us know. We always love a reading recommendation. This is a group that loves to read. So thank you for that. And we will catch you all in the next episode. Bye, everybody. Like what you heard? Hit subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're ready to take the first step toward becoming a copywriter yourself, sign up for a free video training right here.